Good afternoon. This is Pamela Lynn Coldhauser with Abolition News Network, July 18th, 1873, on the 10-year anniversary of the attack on Fort Wagner by Colonel Robert Gould Shaw of the 54th Massachusetts All-Colored Regiment. Colonel Shaw was raised in a wealthy family in Boston, Massachusetts. He was also educated for 3 years at Harvard University. Welcome, Colonel Shaw.
How do you do, Miss Gould Shaw?
It's Coldhauser.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, Colonel Shaw, let's begin. How did you actually get interested in slaves in the South?
Well, I remember my family visiting an English actress by the name of Fanny Kimball, and how she spoke of visiting her husband's plantations in Georgia and the terrible conditions of the slaves, and how they came pleading to her for help. And because of that, they were flogged. Later, when I was studying at Harvard, I heard a speech by William L. Garrison of cutting the South totally out of the Union. And I also heard clergymen Theodore Parker and Wendell Phillips of abolition. They had also been influenced by Garrison.
Well, so where was the beginning of having this all-black regiment?
Well, I wrote a letter to a friend of mine of the New York Daily Tribune, and I asked him an unusual question. I said, now, why wouldn't the government use the very instrument that would end the war sooner, namely the slaves? They know the enemy, and they have lines right into their camps. Well, evidently, my feelings got back to the War Department and to Governor John Andrews of Massachusetts, because on February 2nd of 1863, he wrote a letter to my father asking if I would like a full promotion to colonel from captain and be in charge of a regiment of volunteers of persons comprised of African descent.
Wow. You jumped at that chance.
No, I did not. But I was drawn to the risk. Now, I was warned that Jefferson Davis of the Confederacy considered any white officer in charge of such a regiment to be inciting an insurrection in battle, and threatened they would be put to death, and Negroes, if wounded, would be shot, and if captured, would be returned and re-enslaved.
Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about your military experience?
Yes, well, when the Civil War broke out and President Lincoln asked for volunteers, I joined the New York State Militia and later a second lieutenant in the 2nd Massachusetts, then wounded in the Battle of Antietam. Now, when the 54th Regiment was fully trained, I was ordered to assist Colonel James Montgomery to pillage and burn down the town of Darien, Georgia. Now, I reported this to President Lincoln, and I told him it would be a bad reputation for the black troops to do this. He later fired General Hunter.
There are several of us that feel that this frontal attack on a massive fort is a little bit insane. I mean, how did you think you could win?
Let me show you on this map here. You see the...
Colonel Shaw, let's just share that with the viewers, please.
The Charleston Harbor is protected by Fort Johnson and Fort Moultrie, and Fort Wagner could be softened up by going through a narrow strip of sand to the south, at low tide only. Colonel Seymour thought the fort could be taken by direct assault at night.
Well, according to the count, afterward, there were actually 1,515 casualties on your side, including yourself, and only 174 on the Confederate side. So do you think that, and do you feel that the 54th Regiment was being sacrificed like black cannon fodder?
No, not at all. There is no evidence to prove that. Besides, I even volunteered to lead the campaign of the charge on that fort. And I trusted General Seymour.
So looking back, do you really feel that charging up the slope to a fort with a sword in one hand and a flag unfurled in the other, yelling, "Charge!" was a good military tactic?
Yes, it is a time-honored tradition for a colonel to do that. It's the smell of victory that counts. That's when I said, "Onward, my brave boys, onward!"
Don't pull your sword on me.
Mrs. Smock, please let him finish his story.
I'll finish your story.
My brave
Mrs. Smock!
boys, onward!
He's only kidding. The battle at Fort Wagner is over. The colonel was buried underneath his soldiers. Please. Thank you, Colonel Shaw, for sharing your military experience with us. I really do hope to get to watch the way fighting continues to change over the years. But I want you to know that you really were a very big inspiration and you boosted the morale of the black soldiers that you trained. This is Pamela Lynn Coldhauser with Abolition News Network saying we will be right back with a special tribute to President Abraham Lincoln after these messages.